Cora, good evening, everyone. It is December the 13th, no, 16th, I'm sorry, December 16th. And we are gathered for a discussion in relationship to what we talked about on yesterday or any questions that you may have other than what we spoke about yesterday. I would like to field the questions from those who have a question not pertaining to yesterday, because when we respond to the one from yesterday, then that's probably going to take up the rest of our time, okay? Kathy Neal, question?
Yes. Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 11, 19 through 20.
Read it, please.
It says, I will give them one heart, and I will put a new spirit within you. And I will take the stony heart out of their flesh, and will give them an heart of flesh, that they may walk in my statutes, and keep mine ordinances, and do them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. My question is, in the beginning where it says, I will give them one heart. What does it mean by one heart?
One heart is what we're trying to do. One heart is talking about balance.
About what?
Balance.
Okay.
The stability of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the journey that we are on already. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I said okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak to that, or do I have to raise another question?
I have another question. This is for Mel. Good evening, everyone. Yesterday, when we were talking, I want to make sure I got something right. Loving kindness is a principle out of Mayat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you give an explanation of what loving kindness is or is not?
Loving kindness cannot be defined um, by a dictionary. Loving
Okay.
kindness is an experience. Um, do do you know what it feels like to love someone? Daughter, spouse, friend, etc.
I believe I do.
Do you know how to be kind?
I think that's where this part's going to come up. It was a topic of discussion day at work, and someone said loving kindness is when you speak nicely, irregardless of what's going on. And I understood that, but loving, I remember we defined it as giving what a person needs.
I agree with
So, go ahead.
I agree with that, given what a person needs.
Okay. What if a person continuously does something and you have to yell at them or you end up yelling at them? Is that giving them what they need?
Not necessarily. Why did you have to yell? Yelling escalates as opposed to you sitting down and have a conversation with them. And if they did not want to have a conversation, then let
Mhm.
it go. But yelling doesn't solve anything.
Okay. So, the second part that was brought up, if it's a child and a child is being misbehaving, what we call misbehaving, and you spank that child, is that still loving kindness?
It has become a part of our culture as loving kindness. as long as you're spanking and not beating.
And spanking such that you want them just to catch their attention to make them understand that is not an acceptable behavior.
Yes.
Okay, I think I've got it.
Thank you.
I got clarity. Thank you.
Okay. Let's look at it historically, please. Africans didn't whip their kids. They spoke to them from birth, and they did not yell at them. They spoke softly to them, and they mimicked what they saw. The children mimicked what they saw in the community. We did not start whipping our kids until the whip whipped us. That's where whipping came from. It came from the enslaved person being beaten with a whip. And that was a form of discipline that was forced upon enslaved people. And that became a part of the culture, not the whipping with the whip, not harming the child, but to get the child's attention and hopefully instilling some discipline into that child. However, I don't believe that is really necessary. It depends on how the child is reared from the beginning. Now, in the society that we live in, it does sometimes become necessary because of the child, the way the child talk to you, the way the child act towards other people or towards you. And an example of that is no child is going to curse me. All of my kids are grown, and none of them are going to curse me. They will use no profanity towards me. That's not going to happen, and that's unacceptable. They are not going to raise their voice at Phoebe or me. They got one shot with me, and they got zero shot raise their voice at Phoebe. So everything is dealt with on the basis of culture and preference and a stable mindset towards proper discipline. Any questions or comments about any of that?
Yeah. Good evening, Pastor. Good evening, everyone. This is JC in Philly. I think the mindset that you're talking about is in terms of how we again perceive, what we have been taught. I think we spoke about it in the past where we talk about well, it was talked about terrible twos, but in our Kemetic teachings, it talks about terrific twos. I think that mindset right there helps us to be able to appreciate, how do we, teach our children. I don't even want to say discipline them or, anything that would be of the way of us, being taught in the past. So I think I just wanted to share that thought because that really resonates with me where there's no terrible twos, but what about being, terrific twos in a way that we can teach? So I just wanted to share those thoughts because that was on my mind about what Ravel, was.
Okay.
I'm done.
In reference to the discipline comes from disciple or the same foundation as disciple. And if you are mimicking the behavior that you should in the midst of your family, your children, that then they will become a disciple of you. If you're not doing that, they're going to become a disciple of you. Children have a tendency to do what's shown in their presence, your actions, your words, that kind of a thing. An example of that is this. I overheard one of my children talking to one of their friends. Don't know what the discussion was about, but the response to whatever that she was asked was, I've never heard my daddy argue with my mama or my mama argue with my dad. Does that mean that we did not have disagreements? No, that does not mean it at all, because we had 5,222. But they didn't know it. Why? When I first got married, one of the first things I said about our children was this: we will not argue in front of the kids. If I raise my voice or if I become argumentative, just say, James, let's talk about this later on. And I will do the same to you. And believe it or not, from that day forward, that's how we handled it. And that is the reason she could say, I never heard that. And I do believe, now he was kind of self-serving too, because I knew nothing about what I know now. Because I also knew if that child had to choose, they go choose mama. And I didn't want to put them in that position. And I did not want them to grow up being argumentative, even though a couple of them did. I'm done. Questions, comments?
I have a question on that.
Let me respond and say something else. And George,
Okay.
when I think about Chris, I think about you, you discipling him and molding him in an image of positivity without having to beat it into him. It's all in how you present yourself in their presence and in the presence of other people. Make sense, George?
Absolutely. And again, as I say, we all have our experiences, but one thing that I never done was, again, hit my wife or say anything displeasing to her and in front of them. And at the same time, when we do have to address an issue that I might have a difference, there's, a respect that we both have in terms of how we do it. So definitely, my son, I guess sees not just what I say, but how I treat my wife. And that's important for him to see and to know. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Vermeer, was that you?
Yeah, that was. And I just want to say thank you both. That helps me understand much better. I appreciate you.
Thank you for raising it. Keep in mind, whatever we are discussing, it does indeed have an influence on humanity because that's our primary purpose. And when you have a purpose for doing something, whether you realize it or not, it has an effect, especially when you know who you are. And that is why we say periodically, we must make sure that we monitor what we say and how we say it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, quick question.
Mhm.
I hear you saying that loving kindness can be giving a person what they need, but does it depend on motive?
Always depends on motive.
Sorry?
I say always depends on motive, yes. Yes. If the motive is not pure, then it's not loving kindness. It's transactional. Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question to ask, sir.
Sure.
Regarding the children and they're observing what's being done by the parents, isn't there something to be said about the energy that's also there, whether they observe things or not?
Oh, absolutely. The energy has to be, um, back then it was, I would say it had to be positive energy. Now I'm saying, since I understand the energy flows, what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter what the discussion is about outside of the presence of the children. If you deal with that disagreement in an orderly fashion, even if you raise your voices, you're not you're not dealing with it out of pure anger and revenge. You're trying to get to an agreement. Therefore, the energy that you are that's coming from you is not an energy that wants to abuse either party. So with that is simply the energy what that they're receiving rather or experiencing is the energy that helps them to understand how to handle disagreements. And I think one of the persons on this now who probably can speak to what I just said um, more give you more information on that is Audrey because of Montessori, the way they handle discipline. Do you mind, Audrey?
Well, discipline in Montessori is based on natural consequences. We're not looking to punish or humiliate or any of those things. So the whatever consequences there are a natural consequence of the action. For example, if somebody, like I had a little boy that threw a stick and broke a window. Okay, so the natural consequence of that is, hey, you might have to fix the window. That might entail calling your parents so that they know that somehow that window is going to need to get fixed. But so it's not really a punishment. It's just, as I said, a natural consequence of the action.
Take responsibility for what you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the other thing I want to say is I feel like a lot of kids don't get any direct teaching in terms of love and kindness. I mean, they may have a certain relationship with their parents at home, but they don't get any direct teaching, which I'm sure is the impetus for a lot of bullying at school. As kids think they can do whatever and it's funny or whatever. So they don't get any direct instruction from their parents or other significant other people in their lives. Because the ones that do are not the ones who are bullies. So I think it's very important that kids get direct teaching. I mean, I always had to challenge kids to be more compassionate, be more empathetic. I mean, what if that were you? How would you feel then? So I was always challenging and talking to them and letting them know what the right response was or what was the right thing to do in the situation. So I think we just need to challenge kids on doing the right thing in whatever situation, and challenge them to be more compassionate and to think about other people, rather than just whatever it is that they want at that moment or what they want to happen at that moment.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kathy, would you deal with what we are talking about from the perspective of public school council?
Well, basically, I agree with everything that Audrey was just saying. And there are more kids today being taught to be less compassionate, even to have hatred in their hearts, even toward the adults who deal with them based on even the color of skin. And like Audrey was saying, the bullying doesn't always come from those kids that you would expect, because a lot of times people thought in the past that the bully was going to be the low-income child who didn't have anything, but that is not the case anymore. The bullying is usually the affluent child who has, quote unquote, by the world standard, everything. And therefore that gives them, they think, the right to treat people however they want to treat them. And the parents foster that behavior because they don't do anything to correct it. And so I definitely agree with everything that Audrey was saying. And I was thinking when she was speaking, even in a situation where I've shared this with you guys before, where I worked with a student as a sixth grader, the first thing out of her mouth when she met me as her school counselor was that she was sorry, but she didn't deal with N's, and she used the N word against me and said her parents told her not to talk to N's. And I explained to her that she was my student, and regardless of what she had been taught, my premise was going to be, as my student, I'm going to love you and treat you like I treat all of my students and take care of you whenever you need a helping hand. And of course, I had the privilege of keeping my kids for 3 years and moving up with them each year. And as a result, by the time she was an eighth grader, and I was thinking as Audrey was speaking, we impact lives of children and change their perspectives. And sometimes we move on and totally forget that we changed a whole trajectory of someone's life. But by the end of her eighth grade year, she wrote how wrong her parents had been. She had never known a Black person before. She just bought into what she was being told. But as a result of having worked with me and getting to just know me as a person, she understood that everything she had been taught was wrong, and she could not hold on to that anymore. And that was many, many years ago, and I hadn't even thought of that until I was listening to us have this discussion tonight. But absolutely, loving kindness is not just something that you can sit down and teach, but it's definitely something that you can model every day, no matter what circumstance you find yourself in and with whomever it is that you may be dealing with. You can always model being loving kindness by being the face of love in the face of hate, in the face of hate. So when hate comes your way, you answer it with love. When anger and hostility comes your way, you answer it with peace. And so it's a lot of dynamics to this conversation tonight, but those are the things that I would share that I've seen over the many years of being a school counselor and just working with kids. The whole dynamics of who you think a bully might be has changed. And because of privilege and influence and wealth, now those are the kids that think they have the right to just deal with people any kind of way they choose because they can. And so those are the thoughts I just wanted to share on that. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Thank the both of you. Mara, did that help you?
Yes, sir, it did. Thank you both.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about what was just discussed?
I have a question, facilitator.
Yes, ma'am. My name is James.
Pastor Jay, so that mindset that we're talking about, the bullying and the no loving kindness, is that still a European concept?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Because kids mock their parents, a lot of them, you know?
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, when we talk about the European concept, we're not talking about the color of your skin. We're talking about the mindset that you have. Because I have seen kids in the malls or in a grocery store yelling at their parent. And some of them look like me and some of them don't. But it of course it irritates me because that tells me that the child has no boundaries. And when you grow up with no boundaries, you're not very real light because you don't get along with anyone because you feel like you can say what you want to say to them, but when they respond to you, you upset. So I hope that helps, Evelyn.
It does, because when I see it, when I'm out, you know, parents will laugh or smile. I just look at them because I really feel sorry for them because they don't know what they're raising if they do not discipline that child. So that helped out a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I actually I used to hear my parents, my mom and my grandmama say stuff like, if you don't discipline them, the police will. And most of the time, that's exactly what happened. And we do everything we can to mitigate that because we know what the consequences of that can be, especially based upon a lady rebuking somebody in the name of Jesus and getting shot in the face. So, questions, comments?
Hey, Pastor, I was getting ready to ask you about that, and that's why I went to Proverbs and 24, and it say
What's the 24th chapter or what? What chapter?
13th chapter, verse 24. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It said, he who withholds his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines in diligence.
Okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got to beat them with a rod or a stick or a belt or whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna give you an example of this, what I'm saying. My grandmama's rod was her voice. And I've never heard her raise her voice. I've never heard her argue with anyone. James, I am so surprised that you did that. That's not how you raised. You should know better than that. And on in that tone. And before she finishes, I'm crying. Or whomever it was, one of the siblings or cousins who she was disciplining. Never, ever whipped any of us, but had the respect of all of us and everybody in the neighborhood. And that was her way, that was the way she dealt with everything. So that was the way that we did it in the communities before we were brought to this country. It's that simple. But a lot of things we do because we have a different mindset than the one we grew up with, than the one that we were created with. And that is one of the things that we're making efforts to get back to. Any questions or comments? Any questions about yesterday?
Pastor, I have a question about yesterday.
Okay.
And I may need Evelyn to rephrase her question because I'm sure I may not say it the way she said it. But she asked a question about the making of man, if I'm saying it the right way, Evelyn. And I wanted you to review that and give me a little more clarity on that because I'm thinking I missed the understanding or the explanation of what you told her to answer her question.
Okay.
You're correct, Kathy. You're correct.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, Evelyn.
Well, Evelyn, tell her what I told you.
Ain't enough time in the week for me to tell her what you said. But thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. When I was talking about responding to the question yesterday, I'm not going to go into the depth. However, the major parts of it was this. Man, when it talks about man being formed from the dust or the dirt of the earth, that is not a literal dust that we were formed from. And if we look at that in depth and we ask ourselves spiritually, what is earth? Spiritually, when we talk about earth, we talk about consciousness, do we not? So when man was made, he was made with earth consciousness as well as spiritual essence. And that gives man the ability to make choices about which path he wants to travel. With me so far. If that man,
Yes.
thank you, if he had does not had those choices, then when Stephen capitulated to what Ptolemy was asking him to do by way of making him a god, and bottom line, creating a religion called Christianity, he would not have been able to do that if he did not have earth consciousness. If you don't have earth consciousness, then you don't know how to bring order to disorder from your spiritual essence. Does that make sense so far, Kathy? And the rest of you, of course.
It does.
Okay. So when it talks about being made from the dust, we are looking at what is called in the Kemetic view, the mud of noon, meaning that it is the dust from the universe, or it is the dust from the plasma that the universe is made up of, that man was made from. And that was done through the voice of the atom. The atom is not a vocal voice. The atom is based upon the desire of Ein Sof, the light above all lights. That's what the desires are based on. The desire to bring into existence a physical world was the desire of Ein Sof. Otherwise, it couldn't have been done. So Ein Sof brought into existence what in Christianity we call, or in Genesis we call and in Genesis 2, where it talks about the dust of the earth, we're talking about consciousness. So the consciousness of spirituality as well as earth consciousness was in man before it became physical. And well, maybe I should say mankind, because it's not a man, it's mankind, before it became physical. And the way it became physical was not by hands, but by the authority that was vested in the atoms. Like example, why is it that the atom was naming everything? It's because the atom, the atom, which ADAM should have been atom, why is it that it had named everything? Because it was bringing into existence the characteristics of everything. There is absolutely nothing on this earth that does not consist of atoms. So when the atoms were doing what they were doing in terms of molding the characteristics, they were doing it at the behest of whom? Elohim, of Ptah. And that's why the Bible says that, and he said, and he said. This is not verbal. So what happened? The atoms to make a dog came together, or the atoms to make a tree formed that tree. And these atoms, as they were moving into the direction of creation, they were bringing into existence things, a tree thing that men, once they are physical, will give names to. So when it talks about he named them, it's talking about characteristics. It's not talking about, and he said this gonna be a dog and that gonna be a lion. That's not it at all. It is the characteristics of their form that is talking about. Does that help, Kathy, so far? At home.
So far, it really does, yes.
Another question?
Okay, and this may be the same. So when you speak of the atom, atom, what is there a difference then in the atomic energy and kinesthetic energy? Because I've always focused more on that form of energy instead of atomic energy. So, or is energy just energy? Let me ask it that way.
Yeah, energy is energy.
Is all energy the same?
Yes.
Okay.
All energy is the same. But guess what? The Creator has given us the authority and the ability to use energy in any way we deem to use it, whether it's for destruction or whether it's for loving kindness. Energy is energy. When I was reading about the guy who made a generator, I think he was in Zimbabwe. He made a generator. And that generator, I think I said Nigeria yesterday, but it's Zimbabwe. He made a generator. And that generator was the size of one of those generators that you see at Home Depot or Lowe's. And that generator provided electricity for 300 homes. And they tried to figure out, they meaning the people who were making money from electricity, made efforts to determine how he did that. They have not been able to do that. Barbara was talking about rhythm and what is this? What she was saying? The other word?
Vibration, frequency.
Vibrations. Yeah, yeah. He knew how to take the vibrations from the air, of the energy in the air, and transform it inside of that generator. And he had fans on the front of it that pushed it out. I have no clue how he did that. He never got to mass producing, of course, because what happened in Zimbabwe, when they found out what he had done, he was arrested. And they kept him under arrest, trying to figure out how he did it and what they were going to do with him. So I don't know what his fate was, but based upon history of people who are able to to create things like that, based on that, I would say his fate wasn't too good. And in listening to that and reading that, that said to me that Dr. Sebi, you heard of him? Anybody who has not heard of him, please say so.
I
Okay.
haven't.
Dr. Sebi found the plants that were necessary to sustain life. And for example, there's a tea and black seed oil that kills cancer cells. And he had a plethora of herbs that healed the body and kept the body viable. And Dr. Sebi was arrested more than once, but I think his last arrest came in South America, and then they found him dead. The pharmaceutical industry was not going to let that happen for him. This is what came to me as I was reading this in reference to the generator. I believe that Dr. Sebi was part of a part of what we talked about yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Anyway, reincarnation. I believe that Dr. Sebi was the reincarnation of Imhotep, because no one taught him that. If no one taught him, how did he find out? How did he know that these things would be medicinal and be and pair it with the disease to the extent that the disease was eradicated? How did he know how to do that? But the bottom line that he said is this: the basis of every disease in the body is inflammation. Get the inflammation out of your body, you don't have issues. So I say all of that to say that our ability to bring into existence those things that's needed for mankind is still with us. The question is, do we believe it? Not lip service, but to what depth do you believe it? And I lost my train of thought from what Kathy asked me originally by going through those examples. So I'm asking her to, if that response was to her question.
Yes, it was. You cleared it up with all energy being the same and clearing up the understanding of the making of man. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from yesterday or comments?
Pastor Jay, I got a question.
Sure.
So the concept that you just described, I mean, we do the same thing too when we're creating, because all material things are made out of protons, electrons, and neutrons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the atom. So yeah, we do the same thing. We just don't label it or whatever, but we do it anyway. It's just who and what we are, if that makes sense.
Yes, one of them. The one with the generator that could provide electricity for 300 homes. That had to have come from his spiritual essence. the plants were already in the earth that Dr. Sebi used. So the usage for them came from the essence of who he is spiritually. So to be honest with you, when we were taught that we were co-creators with God, that could not be further from the truth. We are not co-creators, we are creators. But the African mindset, for the most part, especially in America, in this colony that's called America, we haven't created anything. We are just now beginning to create for the benefit of humanity in a different way than those than the refrigerated truck provided meat that could be distributed from state to state. That refrigerated truck provided the coolness or the air conditioning or whatever you want to call it for that to be done. The greatest thing that we in this colony could ever bring into existence, we have never done it. And that is loving kindness. That's forgiveness. We have always had the spiritual wherewithal to do that. But rather than look at the records and see who we really are, we bought into a system that taught us how to forget where we came from. We went to a school that taught us that slavery was beneficial to the African. Now, where are we? We have thrown off the chains of religion and have embraced the essence of who we are. We are back at our origin. We are being shown what we knew from the beginning. So we are being re-educated, or the essence of our wisdom is being 186. Would you check your mute, please? Would you make sure, everyone, would you make sure you're muted? We are in a position now where our desires, 186, thank you. We are in a position now where our desires can be brought into existence as long as the desires are one with our Creator, the essence of who we are. We have been given proof that our desires are powerful. Everything that we have desired to be uncovered so that we can help humanity see how the earthly powers have been misappropriated and used against them by virtue of us putting it in the macro. We've seen that. So why is it now so difficult for us to see our desires for humanity come into existence? we have been taught that things that are unprovable don't exist or they're not that important. We have been taught that the things that are called outlandish when it comes to spirituality, we have been taught that those are coincidences. You cannot embrace who you are and believe in coincidence. Those two do not go together. Every single thing that takes place, it's there for a reason. We are working hard in terms of our desires to cleanse not just our thoughts from religion, but also to cleanse our thoughts from disbelief or from applying to everything that we can't explain, coincidental. We as a people also have bought into the lie of logic. Logic came from the Greeks. There is absolutely nothing that we have done and are doing spiritually that meets the terms of what logic is in this earth. None of it. So those who are desirous of holding on to their religion will never see the depth of who they are, because you have to believe the truth in order to see who you are. And the truth is in the Bible, but it has not been discerned by those who purport to know what's in the Bible. Example, men go to a seminary all the time. Men, women, they go to seminaries all the time. They go to seminaries so they could study what? Theology. Theology is the study of God. Tell me what teacher on this earth or that you have come in contact with has the ability to study God. So that in itself is antithetical to what spirituality is. And that is the reason religion is devoid of spirituality and full of physicality, materialism. And it will always be that way because it was brought into existence to do exactly that. Questions, comments? No questions, no comment. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I have something I want to put out there, not necessarily talk about it now, but at some point. I wanted to get all your questions first. There being no more questions, seemingly, I believe that we have to discuss the food source and synthetic medication. Why is that? If you have ever cooked, or if you are serious about cooking, you know something that a lot of people don't pay attention to. a lady or man bakes a cake. Let me use me. James Richard bakes a cheesecake simply because the girl said, I want a cheesecake, and he did not feel like doing it, but he did it anyway. And when they tasted the cheesecake, they said, oh my God, this is the worst cheesecake you ever made. And the next one said, for God's sake, don't make another cheesecake just because somebody wants you to do it. If you don't feel it, don't do it. Why did that happen? I used the same ingredients that I've always used. The one thing that was different was my energy. I didn't want to do it. Some of you on, I know that you are terrific cook because you love to do it. I mean, the first time I ate broccoli was when somebody on this line cooked it, because I never cared anything about it. But anyway, my point is, when you are cooking, whatever utensil you're using, whether it is automated or it is hand driven, the energy from you is transported to whatever you are cooking. It goes through that instrument that you are using to mix whatever you're cooking. Your energy determines whether the cheesecake is good or not, whether it is acceptable in terms of taste from the ones that you had before. That energy is the determining factor in that. And that is the reason you can take the same recipe and give that recipe to someone else. And when they finish with that recipe, it does not taste like yours. Why? Because they were not cooking it with their energy. They were attempting to cook it with yours because they wanted it to taste like what you cooked. Does that make sense? That same energy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That same energy of which I speak it does have the power, the authority to bring into existence everything that we are in need of. The earth was brought into existence for the purpose of providing everything we need. And if we become one with the creation, meaning the things in the earth, we won't have any issues when we are not only cooking, but when we are interacting with the food sources in this earth. I also believe this. The scripture says that the water was poisoned. Moses put a stick in it, and it was sweet. It was no longer poison. When that scripture is saying, when you have everything in you drawn out of you, that is antithetical to righteousness or to spirituality. When that is no longer your go-to, no longer your focus, no longer your influencer, it is impossible for you to find anything that is needed that you don't know how to deal with. Impossible. That story tells us that the stick didn't make the water sweet or didn't take the poison out of it, because that's what that meant. It was you, because you have drawn everything out. There's one thing that we need to think about. When we say things like, just step back and let God work, or God is on my side, stuff like that diminishes what you say you believe, because you are God. It is not wrong for you to say, well, I have been told I'm a good cook, or I have been told that I'm a great doctor, or by the mercy of God, or by the hand of God, I'm gonna get this done. No, no, there is nothing in the scriptures, even if you're reading the Bible, that says that. It always talks about God doing it. Yes. And then the scripture says, I said that ye are gods. So if it's if the creator is saying that you are as it is, then why are you saying that something outside of you is the power that allows you to bring something into existence, to cook well, or allows you something outside of you allows you to get through things? The only thing that helps you get through things is your belief, your knowing. That helps you get through things. We're going to begin to see that there's not going to be a whole lot of mercy out here, because people have enough understanding or difficulty in their lives to search for something better than religion. What do I mean? Mercy is not just going to be there for, especially for us. When you know better, you do better. When we are dealing with things, we deal with them differently than we did in the past. We don't fall apart but about 20 minutes, sometimes 24 hours, but we pull it back together because our trust is in who we are. Am I right, y'all? Do you trust who you are? That's where it is. We have the authority to take the bitterness out of the food, meaning that our energy can convert anything. There is nothing more powerful than our energy, the energy that of Atum is always in us. And Elohim has already said that you are just like I am. Ptah said the same thing. So our encounters with food and how it affects is pretty much based on the energy that you put into it. Oh my God, this food go kill us. Yes, it is. As opposed to saying, you know what, this is all I have to eat, and I'm making this be beneficial to my body. The nutrients in it that were taken out of it, my energy is replacing them. Does that make sense? That we can do that. Bob, are you on?
Yes.
Okay. This is just a question for an example, okay? I know you know. What is saline?
Saline is salt.
Salt, right? What do they do when they put you in the ambulance? When they start an IV on you, what fluid do they?
They probably give you some normal saline unless the issue is low blood sugar or something like that, and then they'll give you some dextrose, which is sugar.
Right. So why do they give you sugar? I'm sorry. Why do they give you normal saline when they pick up someone who had a stroke?
It has to do with what the cells do when there's something going on in the body.
Right.
The cells lose a lot of that salt. It gets pulled out of the cells, and so what they're doing is replacing it.
9,000 grams of salt is in one of those saline packets. And 18,000 if they give you 2. So why is it that your blood pressure start going down with that much salt?
Only thing I can think of is because the blood volume has been reduced. Otherwise, there really shouldn't be any reason why your blood pressure shouldn't be going up.
Okay. In the body has a pump that pumps sugar. I'm sorry, salt. And that salt that's what causes us to urinate. So that body, if your body can take 18,000 grams of salt within a couple of hours and you don't have a stroke and die, why do we believe that salt causes high blood pressure or people with high blood pressure to have a stroke?
That rhetorical?
No, you can answer.
No, it sounded rhetorical because you said, why is it that we believe then that people with high blood pressure, that salt causes people to have a stroke? And salt doesn't necessarily cause people to have a stroke. That's not necessarily what does that. Strokes usually occur because of a blood vessel that in the brain that has either ruptured or it's lost its integrity and starts leaking blood into the cranium, into the brain.
Thank you, Bob. Most diuretics is nothing but salt. And that's what causes you to go to the bathroom. Sodium is what promotes urination. And when you take that blood pressure pill, you go to the bathroom frequently because you don't have enough salt in your body. And we're told, don't put salt on your food. Are we not? Yeah, we are. The salt that has been bleached, no, that's the danger, the bleach. The same thing with white sugar, bleach. That's where the danger occurs. So it's things like that I think we need to address. And the reason I say that is because I listened at a video that talked about, in different places, that talked about this thing called APEEA appeal that Bill Gates had his lab to produce. And the peel is a waxy substance that covers fruit and vegetables. And it helps their shelf life to extend, but you cannot wash it off. Yet it has arsenic in it. Those are the kinds of things that we need to address. The food source and medicine. Why? because I believe that a part of healing the world, a part of healing in this nation, in this colony, is bringing healing to the body, the total person. Heal the spirit, heal the body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If we
Yeah.
understand that, now, why is it that I'm saying this to you and Phoebe said, I have no clue as to what I can do differently for her. I have no clue as to who I can carry her to change things. I don't know why. But I do know this. There has to be a reason for it, even though I don't know it. There is a reason for it. I don't know what the reason is. And I know that you would, as a human, you would say, well, that's a hell of a thing for God to have a reason for her being sick and you don't even know it and you believe all this stuff. What's your problem? I don't have a problem. There are things in this earth that happens in order for people to take notice of themselves, each other, in terms of love and kindness, in terms of your relationships with other people. I don't know, because I would tell you straight up, if I could change places, I would. Because back in my day, I've done a heck of a lot of stuff I shouldn't have done, but not Phoebe. So I don't believe it's a curse. I believe that it's an opportunity for something special, even though I don't know what that special is. And that goes the same for a lot of people I have known to transition. And we say, all the good people die. Suppose, oh, here I go. I'm trying to get away from suppositions, y'all. So help me with that. The people who are good people make great ancestors because they don't die the way we think they die. Death is not what we think it is. It's just that you exiting this body. Yes, it hurt. Yes, you cry. It does hurt. I miss my mama. God, I miss my mama. I miss my mama so much I don't even like to talk about it. I don't like to talk about her. Yes, it hurts. But I've had interactions with my mom since she transitioned that I never would have had if she was still in that body. The reason it hurts when someone transitions is to make us aware of the compassion in us, the empathy. And it provides the energy of empathy and compassion in the world for others to receive. There are people who have no compassion whatsoever, and that is because they're low energy. Your mind determines every single thing about you. So I'm sitting here looking into this camera, saying all of these words. knowing that I am still in progress. I am moving. I am becoming. I have not arrived. I have nowhere near that, but I am becoming. And the more I am able to embrace the reality of spirituality, the more I am able to do that. The more I am aware of the authority that has been granted to all of us. We are here to do more. If we did not believe that we could change humanity, then there's no point in us coming together. You agree with that? I do. So, are there any questions or comments? Oh, Baba Jane, what do you think about the thing on medicine that I just talked about? Possibilities. I got you, George.
I'm sorry, what I think about what?
The
What I think about what?
discussion about the medicine, stroke in particular, the salt.
Oh, I don't believe that there's anything that's totally bad for you.
Right.
And if we do things in moderation, meaning, you know, I balanced, without trying to be greedy, or, you know, I'm doing this because I want to do, you know, some selfish reason. Everything in moderation. There's nothing bad about anything. If we do it in a balanced, harmonious kind of way, with ourselves, with our food, with our meds, with our beverages, whatever it is.
Yes. And since you mentioned beverages, if you drink sodas, you're drinking poison. That's a death sentence. You're killing yourself. The amount of chemicals and sugar that's in one soda is astronomical. So I'm saying that just as the cooking energy works, all energy works for all purposes. Questions about that? Okay.
I'm sure glad about that energy because I just drank a soda.
Oh boy, what is it? 4 tablespoons of sugar in each soda, or 5, something like that. And that chemical they put in there so the sugar won't gag you because it would be too sweet.
No, it's the chemicals in that diet soda too that I drink.
Oh yeah. Diet, anything. I remember my pastor church, and these ladies would drink diet sodas and eat 2 plates. I'm like, why are you drinking it? So anyway, that's one of the things I think that we need to delve into much deeper at some point. That's all. Because that's one of the things that we have not talked about. That's all. Charles.
You know that, let me get rid of the case. My question is, when they, check your blood, how can they find, these different things in your blood about your liver, your kidneys, your appendix, and all that?
Being a diabetic too.
And being a diabetic.
It's because of your blood. Everything in your body that flows through your body is in your blood. Everything. And your blood goes to every organ in your body. And Barbara could be more specific than I can with that.
I think we get too technical. But what you said is the issue. The blood feeds everything, and it also is a resource for taking waste out of your body. So it does 2 things.
So that's how they do it. Okay.
I didn't know it takes waste out of your body, but I understand it now.
Right. Like when when you like for instance, Charles, your liver, you can look at the chemistries for your liver. The blood has it depends on how much waste is taken from your liver, because sometimes your creatinine or something like that can go up, which is an indicator of some potential kidney issues based on the amount of toxins, they call it toxins, in your liver excreted through your urine as well. So, and so not only your blood, but your urine as well. So that's why.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Did I say something?
Yeah.
It's Cheryl. So many things are running through my mind, but principal among them is the synthetic medications that we take, as opposed to the natural roots that we used to take. And I remember when I was a child, we would have cold. We didn't have them often, but when we did, my father had this jar, and it was a brown bottle wrapped in brown, and on the thing he'd go to the apothecary, and it was called juniper tar. He would take a teaspoon of sugar, half teaspoon of sugar, and put 3 drops on it. And within days, the cold was gone. We didn't have any symptoms. We didn't feel badly, none of that. And now with the medication that we take, you're going to have some symptoms. It's going to create some other issues. It takes care of some stuff, but it also causes other problems. And so, it makes me wonder if, in fact, we shouldn't be looking at those natural symptoms, those natural, I can't call them medications, but looking at those medicinal roots and herbs that our parents and our grandparents used to use. And unfortunately, I never wrote any of that stuff down. So I have no way of, directly accessing that. But I'm sure that our ancestors, we must know people who know about these medicinal things that we can access from trees, from flowers, from plants. And as for me, I would really like to get back to that, as a part of my growth. That's all.
You can. Your energy can do that. But George, you had a question, unless there are questions about what Cheryl said. George?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna, say that in reference to spirituality, and we've talked about this spirituality before religion. And I think that, spirituality is unseen science and science is seen spiritually. However, when we can appreciate the mesodental plant life, the mineral life, and being able to go back to the potency of those roots versus the synthetic, drugs that, we hear about today. I attended a conference today, a health conference, and the pharmaceutical company were talking about, the synthetic drugs because people can't afford, what I mean, to pay for the potent drugs that we should be able to receive to help us to deal with our health issues. But listening to them in terms of here's a synthetic drug, and I mean that if that's what you have to do. But I concur with you, Cheryl. I think being able to appreciate, not only our history, but our culture in terms of how did our ancestors deal with these type of ailments. And it's amazing how many people that from Western society travel to go to a Kebalan to look at how are these roots or where can we get these plants. So again, I think a lot has been said, and I think that is related to our spiritual desires versus looking at it in terms of the religious teachings or what society says in terms of how we were taught. I'm done. I just wanted to share those thoughts. Thank you for letting me share.
Nina, I got you in a second, okay?
Sir,
I have you in 1 second, okay?
yes, sir.
Baby takes about 15 pills, maybe 20 pills a day. Synthetic. And she has 3 of those pills. Synthetic. Are $62,000 a month. Those 3 medications, when you combine the cost, are $62,000 a month. So why is it that synthetic drugs cost more than the ones that's in the field? Nobody can afford that. And when we get deeper into this, I'm going to talk about how Henry Ford introduced synthetic medicine to America and why. Regina.
I think I was getting into that, like just the mindset of pill culture is very Eurocentric. Um, most of the synthetic medicines are based on plant phytochemicals that you can't patent because it's a natural thing. And so a lot of labs will isolate indigenous recipes. Like there are labs that get government funding to go and study indigenous cultures and bring back these things and isolate compounds and then put a patent on it and call it whatever drug. So that's one aspect of it, like it's very capitalistic. But the other aspect is that we've gotten away from what does it mean to be whole and healthy? Like if we're 75% water minimal and you're not moving, you're not moving different things in your body, not just exercise, but like different things that you need to be doing to move the energy in your body, like it's stagnant. And these are things that we are not elevating in our culture. It's even when folks go toward the herbal recipes, they're thinking pill culture mindset that I take this thing and then there's an immediate result versus it working as a part of a system. That's it. That's all
Thank
I
you.
have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? George?
Yeah, I have a question, Pastor. You were speaking about compound energy. We were talking about it earlier, and I think for tonight, in terms of us being able to appreciate our collective energy, what are your, thoughts in terms of speaking on that compound energy in reference to our gatherings?
Okay. Our collective energy is,
Pastor,
I think,
Pastor,
yes.
before you move away from the conversation and go into compound energy, George, would you mind if I interject one quick question here about the medicine? Or is that
Okay,
still part of the medicine conversation?
that's part of it. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, no, go ahead then, Pastor. I'll come back then.
Okay. Collective energy is a better word than compound energy. The word that you inserted is brings it home to declare, make it more clear. When there are things that going on with Phoebe, I don't deal with it. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not approaching it alone. And what I mean by that is, of course, my energy is there, but it is impossible for my energy to be there and you guys' energy is not there. We are a collective. And if I am you and you are me, then the energy that I appropriate to get things done or the energy I appropriate for us to see things clearer. All of us are doing that because we are one. We look individual when we look at our pictures via these cameras. But we are a collective. We see all these dots on the screen and the pictures of it, they represent a person. That energy source belongs to all of us. And wherever any of us exert energy for the betterment of an individual or for humanity itself, all of us are there with you. And because all of us are there with you, and because you're hearing it and hopefully you believe it, what you are actually saying is that there is only one energy force that sustains humanity. Only one. It feels different bodies, but it is the same energy. And that energy, because it feels different bodies, because you have different encounters in your environment, you have different thoughts about things. And that is the reason we have multiple teachers, because you have different thoughts about things, and I am not able to bring clarity to everything, but someone within our circle of teachers can do that. Someone who has joined this discussion can do that because of our collective energy. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
It does.
Okay, George,
Yes.
is that the response to what you were asking?
Yes. Thank
Okay, good. Thank you. Kathy?
Okay, I think that ties in exactly to what George just asked, because I was going to ask you about the energy of the African. When I was studying to get certified as a nutritionist, one of the things I remember reading in the studies was that the African, and I'm going to say African American is the way they said it, has higher cases of hypertension because of the amount of salt that we consume. Then they went on to talk about the importance of taking vitamins, even if you're not taking any type of drugs or synthetic drugs and you think you're being healthy by, okay, I'm just going to take some vitamins and boost my immune system and stay healthy. Then it went on to say that all of the studies that are conducted for what the recommended daily allowance would be for those vitamins, none of those studies are conducted on the Africans. So none of that pertains to us. So I guess my question is what the role of the energy of the African, which is what you just said through how you answered George. I wanted to just bring that up because we are buying in, at least I was thinking, oh my God, here we are we just consuming massive amounts of salt and it's just us and all of these things? But hearing the conversation tonight has really helped me because that never sat well with me because it didn't ring true. That it had to be something more if we're eating what other people are eating and we're taking vitamins and attempting to do the health thing. And hear what Cheryl said earlier about going back to the holistic medicinal ways that our ancestors and parents, the recipes that they all had that we didn't know to write down and know about now, and how you dealt with that. But I think all of that is very pertinent as we're looking at this whole health and understanding the role of the African in all of this, because we were definitely targeted in those studies to say that it was almost like, well, they just can't seem to figure out what to do, so that's why they die at a higher rate from all of these things. And I appreciate the conversation tonight. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
You're welcome. It has been proven that the reason African Americans retain fluids, in particular water, is generational. During the European slave trade, Africans would hold water or the liquids in their bodies so they would not die from thirst. Because some of them, they knew that some of them were going to die because there were so many of them on the ship. There were people, there were ones that they missed or didn't care about. And the retention of those fluids is a generational thing that is carried over. There was a second part to what you said, Kathy.
The hypertension rate.
That's the water retention. There was something else you raised.
The recommended daily allowance of vitamins, and that those studies were never conducted on the African.
Yes, that's it. That's the same thing with high blood pressure medicine. It was not tested on the African. Then if you have high blood pressure, the next time you go to your doctor, observe something. When they put white people on high blood pressure medicine, very, very rarely do they change it. When they put Africans on high blood pressure medications, they have to tweak it. You take this one, you try that one, you try this one. It's because of just what Kathy said. We are not included in the studies. So as a consequence, it has adverse effects on us more so than anybody else. That's what I want to say. Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments or questions? I don't think we've exhausted this discussion about food and medicines. And I do also believe that we need to delve deeply into the crimes in our neighborhoods. We need to put that energy in the macro that will change the mindset, especially of young men who are killing themselves, are killing each other rather, where they are killing themselves. I think, I do believe we need to delve into that as well. So keep your eye open, because there are things that are in motion right now that's going to have one heck of an impact on the lives of those who cast a vote to preserve a race and its authority. It's about to hit the fan. Believe you me, what you have heard is not the tip of the iceberg. Your ancestors, I commune with the ancestors, and there is nothing that they share with me that would give me any inkling that this can be turned around. It's just the opposite. With, this is me, not the ancestors, with suffering, minds get clearer and eyes see better. The people who voted for this, their lifestyles are going to deteriorate very quickly. And then they will get clarity of thought, and they will get clarity of sight. So don't be dismayed or despaired of what's coming and what you're seeing. This is necessary. Love you guys, and I will talk with you again on Saturday unless you call or have any questions. I am available to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night.
Take care.